What if the sun suddenly stopped moving for just 1 minute? Think about that. One single minute where the sun freezes in the sky. No motion, no orbit, nothing. Sounds impossible, right? But if it actually happened, the consequences wouldn't just be strange. They'd be terrifying. And today we're going to break down exactly what would unfold, moment by moment, in a way you've never heard before. In this video, you're not just getting another what-if scenario. You're getting a scientific breakdown of how Earth, nature, energy systems, and even the human mind would react if our sun hit pause. And by the end, you'll walk away with a whole new understanding of how fragile our world really is, and how much we depend on a star that never stops working. So here's how we're doing this. We're taking the event second by second, then minute by minute, analyzing the physics, the climate shock, what happens to plants, animals, humans, and even the psychological fallout. And I promise, by the end, you'll get the answer to the question everyone ends up asking. Could humanity survive anything like this? Let's get into it. All right, let's start the clock. If the sun froze in the sky right now, the first second would feel completely normal. You wouldn't notice anything. But here's the first big question. Is the sun even capable of stopping? In reality, what we call the sun moving is really Earth rotating. So, for the sun to freeze, Earth would have to stop spinning instantly. And that leads to the next question. What happens to a planet if it suddenly loses all its rotational momentum? The answer? A global catastrophe in less than a second. Earth spins at over 1,600 kilometers per hour at the equator. If the planet stopped instantly, everything not anchored to bedrock would be launched forward at insane speed. Oceans, buildings, entire cities. But let's assume, for the sake of the scenario, that somehow the sun stops without Earth being torn apart. Let's imagine a universe where only the sun pauses and physics doesn't instantly destroy us. Even then, the consequences are still shocking. 5 seconds in, the first thing humans would notice isn't darkness, it's silence. The air itself would feel heavier because the temperature gradient begins to shift immediately. Without the sun's continuous photons hitting our atmosphere, the upper layers start cooling first. And that creates the next question. How fast does Earth begin to lose heat when sunlight stops? The answer is faster than you think, but slower than your instincts tell you. In the first minute without solar radiation, Earth's temperature doesn't crash instantly. It drops only by fractions of a degree. But the atmosphere's stability, that changes immediately. Weather systems depend on constant heating. Without it, winds begin to shift, pressure zones deform, and the early stages of atmospheric collapse quietly begin. Now we hit the 10 to 20 second mark. Animals that rely on solar cues, birds, insects, and even some plants, sense something is off. Plants stop photosynthesis the moment sunlight stops. And here's the key question. Does 1 minute of darkness harm nature? Not directly, but it disrupts biological rhythms. Even a brief interruption sends stress signals through plant cells, the same way a sudden eclipse does. Except this time it doesn't come with natural warning signs. At the 30 to 40 second mark, humans start feeling psychological effects. Not because the world is freezing, it isn't yet, but because we realize the sun isn't moving. Our brains have evolved around patterns, day, night, sunrise, sunset. When the sun stays frozen, even for under a minute, the brain triggers threat responses. And here comes a new question. Does the human mind depend on the sun's movement for emotional stability? The surprising answer is yes. We subconsciously rely on predictable solar cycles to stabilize mood and internal clocks. At 45 seconds, global energy systems begin reacting. Solar farms instantly drop production. Satellites detecting solar output flag anomalies. power grids sense irregularities. And that leads to another question. How fast would modern technology react to a solar pause? Pretty much immediately. Our entire civilization leans heavily on predictable solar radiation. A sudden stop sends shockwaves through every monitoring system. By the 60-second mark, Earth has cooled slightly, the atmosphere has already begun shifting, and billions of people around the world are staring at the sky, wondering why the sun hasn't moved. Then, the sun snaps back into motion, and this is where things get even more interesting. When the sun resumes its normal position, the atmosphere is now out of balance. Temperature layers are mismatched. Wind currents try to correct themselves. This creates localized turbulence, strange winds, sudden pressure changes, micro-weather events. Plants restart photosynthesis, but now their biological clocks are disrupted. Animals behave erratically for hours. Humans experience something closer to a mass psychological shock. And energy systems worldwide report one of the strangest solar anomalies in history. So here's the final question. Would humanity survive a 1-minute solar stop? Technically, yes, but only because we treated this as a hypothetical that ignores Earth's actual physics. If Earth really stopped spinning, none of us would survive. But if, in some alternative universe, only the sun paused, we'd live. But we'd never think of the sun the same way again. That 1 minute would remind us how dependent every living thing on Earth is on a star that never rests, never blinks, and never stops, even for a moment.